That's okay.
Yes, we are. Hold on, I'm waiting on Mark. Maybe you can just say Grace is here. She's working on her computer at the moment. Ready? Okay, Trish, you're ready. All right. I now call to order the March 26, 2020 regular board meeting of the Leander Independent School District Board of Trustees. Yes, we are.
Trish Bodie.
Here.
Aaron Johnson.
Here.
Grace
Maybe you can just say
Jordan.
Grace is here. She's working on her computer.
Gloria Gonzalez Delekia.
Okay, Trish,
Here.
you're ready.
Alexis Grimes.
All right.
Jim McKay.
I now call to order the March
Pamela
26,
Wagner.
2020 regular
Here.
board meeting of the Leander Independent School District Board of Trustees. The quorum of members being present, we will begin.
Trish Bodie.
One of our trustees, Grace
Aaron
Jordan, had
Johnson.
to log in earlier, had to log out, so
Grace
we
Farmer
will she may be joining us.
Gloria Gonzalez
Tonight, we are meeting this evening under the authority of Government Code Section 551.045 and with the authority of the Governor's Office via video conference to advance the public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings to slow the spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19. I am thankful for our Texas Governor Greg Abbott for providing avenues for local government to maintain critical functions, such as this board meeting. I also would like to thank again our administration and technology staff for making the technology possible for the board to meet in this manner, and for our district to be able to start online learning today. I am in awe daily of the heroic efforts of our staff, and I am so thankful for our supportive Leander ISD family, including, of course, our parents and students. Today was an exciting day across the district as we waded into what our new normal will look like for the time being. We are better together, even when it's virtual. And even though we are in uncharted territory, we will keep moving forward as our foundation is still the same. For tonight, we come together working on items critical for the district to deliver instruction and resources for the 42,000 students in our district. At this time, we will proceed to citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens signed up to speak this evening?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Trish, I would just like to recognize Grace Barber Jordan and Jim McKay have both joined the meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Bruce, for keeping an eye on that as well. If there are any citizens that were signed up to speak for the technology and instructional materials adopted public hearing, those speakers are held until after the public hearing section and after that presentation. So I will ask one more time for if anybody had signed up after we have our presentation on our technology and instructional materials. Hopefully that's clear. All right, so now we will move on into the next part of our agenda, and I believe it's superintendent remarks.
Thank you, President Bodie. Really appreciate the board coming together in this electronic format on Zoom. It's definitely a new normal for us. I think I'm still struggling with my bifocals on Zoom, but that happens every day now, several times a day. So I'm getting used to it. I just really do want to thank the board for the support they've given the administration as we move into this new normal. It's been incredible to watch how everybody's come together. And so I just want to publicly thank the board for the role that they're playing in making sure that Leander ISD gives what each and every student in the district deserves at this time. I do want to thank our administrative team. They've been working incredibly hard over the last several weeks to try to make sure that each and every student in the district gets their needs met, number one, that they stay well and healthy and happy, number two, and that we start to prepare for making sure that their instructional needs are taken care of as well. I do want to specifically thank Laura Lynn and her technology team for the great work that they're doing in making sure that we have access to this technology and that it works so effectively and efficiently every time. We really do appreciate that. Our principals are working diligently from their houses, managing their teams. Our teachers are up and about today and the last couple of days meeting together, and today reaching out to students. And of course, our students and families who are staying home and staying healthy and safe, we want to thank you as well. I don't have anything else particular at this time, so I'll turn it back to you, President Burke.
Thank you, Dr. Gary. All right, board members, do any of our other board members have any remarks or opening comments? All right. We will now move on to the next update in our agenda. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we're moving on to our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're moving on to our COVID-19 update. Is that correct, Dr. Gary?
So actually, I think we missed our public hearing on technology and instructional materials allotment. So I'd like to go back to that if possible.
Yep. I'm trying to pull up all the screens. So thank y'all for bearing with me, and thank you, Dr. Garing, for looking at that. Yes, Krista Carlin is now going to present an overview of the technology and instructional materials adoption presentation that occurred at the agenda review meeting on March 12th. Y'all, that was a few weeks ago, but it is recorded. It is online, so you can go watch more details there. But Krista Carlin does have a small overview to present for us this evening. And then we're going to do a public hearing following the presentation, which means after the presentation, I will ask if anybody signed up to speak for that portion. Thank you. Krista?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the Board of Trustees. I'm going to review our presentation from the March 12th Technology and Instructional Materials Adoption Process. To refresh your memory, our next, let me see if this is working, it's not moving on, so I'm going to get out of this real quick. Sorry.
We're all figuring out the technology, no problems.
I know. Can you see that there?
You can. I think that's
Let me
great.
see if this works, if I can go now. This will let me. So the purpose of this meeting is to Proclamation 2020 was established by TEA, and we are looking at our adoption procedures for resources for secondary English language arts, secondary English language arts electives, and our English as a second language instructional materials. So what you see in your screen is just a refresher of the secondary English language arts recommendation. This is to complete the alignment of the K-12 English language arts adoption process that began last year with kindergarten through 8th grade, and now we're moving on with 9th through 12th. These are the choices for the English language arts elective recommendations. As you'll notice here, the choices that they've made here are also alignment with similar electives as well. And so these are the choices that our teachers are recommending. And then finally, we have our English as a second language recommendations going forth for those courses. To remind you, these are all funded out of our technology instructional materials allotment. And so this is the estimated cost of all of these new materials, not to exceed $2.7 million as our total cost. We currently have that in our fund to ensure payment of this, and also have monies left over in the fund to use for our annual reoccurring costs. We are going to do a public hearing tonight and asking for board action this evening.
All right, so at this time, do we have any public participants who signed up to ask questions during this portion of our meeting?
No, ma'am, we do not. No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, no one has signed up for the public hearing.
Okay. Board members, again, we asked many questions back in March. That seems like so long ago, but we do have that on videotape. There might be some more questions, though, y'all still have. So at this time, board members, are there any other questions you have that you want to ask about this agenda item? We will need to vote on this tonight, so. Pam, your mic is off. Do you want to speak or are you just prepared? Okay, no, just prepping. All right.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees adopt all instructional materials resources for Leander Independent School District as outlined in 2020 Technology and Instructional Materials Adoption List provided.
I'll second. Motion from Aaron. I have a second from Jim. Because we're doing this video and we're still trying to make sure we do it all right, we're going to ask Corinne to do a roll call vote.
Trish Bodie,
Here.
Aaron Johnson,
Aye.
Grace Barber Jordan, Gloria Gonzalez Telequia,
Aye.
Alexis Grimes,
Aye.
Jim McKay,
Aye.
Pamela Wagner.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, board members. We will now move on to our consent agenda. Does anyone, oh, no, we're not gonna move on to our consent agenda. Sorry, we're done with that. Now we're moving on to our coronavirus, the COVID-19 epidemic update. Dr. Gehring, would you like to start the discussions?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I'm going to share my screen with you, I think, potentially. You will see that.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an update on where we are and what our response is so far as a school district. But first, I wanted to tell you that Pflugerville ISD today increased their lunch pickup participation by 42% by doing this. So I don't think they'll be continuing that tomorrow.
Hey, I was in that problem. I understand. That's important.
So I want to start with governance. We did have our emergency board meeting on last Thursday, the 19th. And at that board meeting, you passed a resolution regarding the delegation of authority during emergency. And I want to report to the board that we have not used any of those powers besides the pay and the premium pay portions. So I just want to assure you that if we do use any of those powers, we have to, without consulting the board at a meeting first, then we will absolutely let you know as soon as possible, preferably before we do, but certainly immediately after if that becomes an emergency situation. We have had regular communication going out to board members. That communication includes mostly written updates after our conference calls and things like that. I hope that those communications are clear and that you will reach out to me if you have any other questions or concerns. And here we are tonight on a regular board meeting, 326 on Zoom. And again, thank you for participating this way. I do want to mention that President Bodie and I have been talking about the phased approach of our board meetings. And so we have tried to scale the agenda for tonight down as much as possible to just essential items that we need to discuss and approve. And we will be starting to phase in other, they're still essential, but they're not as urgent items as we go forward in the next couple of months. And so we will have opportunity, hopefully, over the next couple of months to still discuss some important issues that have to do with the planning for next academic year. But then also get some approvals that need to get done. A little bit about the conference calls that we've been participating in. Our local internal call with Leander ISD administration happens at 8 a.m. every day now. We may wean those off next week as we start to get into the swing of things, but we'll certainly continue those for the meantime. There is a Williamson County call at 11 a.m., which we have staff in and listening to the county judge to make sure that we're keeping up with their requests and where they are. Our teaching and learning team is meeting at 2 p.m. every day. We have the TEA commissioner call at 3 p.m. on most days. And then we have a group of Central Texas superintendents who are meeting together at 4 p.m. every day to just make sure that we're together as much as possible and listening to each other, sharing best practices, and making sure that we make great decisions for all of our kids in Central Texas. And then, of course, there are multiple campus level meetings happening with principals, and then with principals and their teams, with teacher groups coming together. I'm hoping that the internet infrastructure continues to maintain itself, and that Zoom continues to help us have these meetings. Just to give you a little bit of current situational awareness, we've exceeded over 500,000 cases now worldwide, with over 22,000 deaths, and we have about 121,000 people who have already recovered from the coronavirus. In the United States, that number of cases is topping 68,000, and these numbers were pulled earlier today and are probably old already, with almost 1,000 deaths. And again, you can see those numbers as we go down: 119 cases in Travis County and 27 cases in Williamson County. As of yet, we do not have any cases in the school district. We are required to be informed by the health department if we do get a case inside the district. And so we continue to hope that all of our families and students stay well during this time. Here's the real problem, though, and this is global cases, but you can see that this is absolutely an exponential curve. And the reason for all of the shutdown and shelter-in-place activity that you're seeing now is to try to flatten that curve somewhat.
Dr. Gary?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if this happens for our viewers at home, but from my screen, our tiles are covering over the bars. Can you let us know, just kind of walk us through the visual of how those bars are going up on the total number of cases?
Hey,
Yes.
Trish, you can change your view up on the right-hand side and put your bar down, put your view down to the bottom like I have it. You have gallery views and some other things over there. You
So
can
for our public watching online too, you can change your views.
change your views.
There you go. So we can change your views. Yes.
Okay. Were you able to grab that box and drag it around?
Yeah. It's,
Okay, and for our public, the live stream actually has the view and the slides side by side, and so they should be able to see everything on the live stream.
And just to clarify, I think this the chart you showed, that's actually U.S. cases. And based on the information I saw just before our board meeting, total U.S. cases now exceed the number of cases in any other country.
Correct. Yes, thank you, Aaron, for that clarification. Just so that you know where we are as a district, we have, of course, suspended normal operations until April 3rd. We are currently assessing the landscape around us. We know that Austin Travis County put the shelter in place in order until April 13th, as did Williamson County. I have heard from Dr. Escott, who's the EMS System Medical Director for the City of Austin and Travis County, recommends several times that schools remain closed for the remainder of the semester. In our conversations with other superintendents, there is no appetite for that at this time, but I wanted to be clear that Dr. Escott is making that recommendation. We do have several districts who've already announced closures until April 13th, including Austin ISD. Del Valle has announced that they'll close until May 1st. They're trying to give their families a little bit more ahead notice. Hayes CISD sent out an interesting note today saying that they are going to continue operations the way that they have them right now, and they will give 1 week of notice before reopening, which is a little different approach that several others are talking about as well.
So, Dr. Gehring, on that note, though, we're so close to the end of school and we're starting this online learning. Can you talk about a little bit what the benefit would be to go back to class for a week or two, since we're already into an April 13th or something like that date to go back? And what the benefit is of not going back. I believe it lies both ways. So what are we thinking on that?
Right. So I'll tell you what we said initially was that we would close for 2 weeks or suspend normal operations for 2 weeks, and then on April 2nd we would make an announcement for the following week, and then we'd go week by week. So that's what we originally communicated out to everybody. It seems that as the landscape is shifting, more people are trying to get in line with Austin, Travis County, the shelter in place, and also Williamson County. Other counties are going the same direction. Hayes County, I know, will put a shelter in place tonight at midnight. And so a lot of school districts are trying to align with their counties, trying not to push too much further out than they are, just because really we just don't know what's going to happen over the next little while. I would say the benefits to being able to open again would be multiple, thinking about our seniors in particular, and the options of graduation, some other things like that, senior awards, some of those opportunities that they're going to miss out on entirely. If we could figure out a way to get open in the middle of May, that may be something to do. I think being closed puts a lot of burden on a lot of families who are living, in difficult circumstances anyway, and I think this adds to their trauma. I think if, for instance, Austin, Travis County were to lift their shelter in place and open businesses again and get back to somewhat near normal, say in the middle of May, I think it would be in order for us to try to do the same thing to benefit our families. However, if everybody remains closed or if the shelter in place is still there, until the end of the semester, then of course I think we have to think about that very carefully. I did want to have more discussion and hear more board member thoughts about, staying open, staying closed, about the benefits of announcing longer closures earlier or going week by week. I really would like to hear some discussion on that at this time.
Dr. Gehring, I like the information you've kind of provided. You've given us a good foundation to have discussion. Before we open it up and all the board members talk about different points of view, if I can understand the options for the board members are what the district is thinking about is, one, we could extend and match the Austin, Travis County and the Williamson County shelter place and go to April 13th. There are some districts that are going to May 1st, so you could also announce the district could go beyond that. That is a question you might be asking. And there's another district that said they're just going to say, we're going to continue in this state for right now, and we're going to give you 1 week notice until reopening. Are those kind of the three options we're thinking of? And does administration have a preference on any of those before we open it up?
And on top of that question, so you can just answer them all at once, is in Central Texas, at least, we've always tried to align to UT schedule, to Austin ISD schedule, to Round Rock schedule, because we have so many employees who work or live in those districts and their children or their parents work in our neighboring districts. So I think about childcare, and I think about every district doing their own thing instead of coordinating this. So I worry about that aspect of it too.
Yes, and we've had lots of conversation in our superintendent group about, trying to stay as close together as possible. It is a little bit difficult just because we're all in different counties to some extent, but also our communities are a little different. And when I say Central Texas superintendents, we're talking about all the way out to Bastrop and Lockhart and Elgin as well, and so they have slightly different circumstances than us. So I think Round Rock is potentially going to go to the April 13th date to stay with Williamson County, since they're mostly in Williamson and Travis. So yes, we are going to try to stay together, some of those announced earlier this week. I wanted to make sure that we waited for our board meeting tonight to have this conversation before we made an announcement. I don't think the announcement is urgent at this time, but if we can make an announcement tomorrow, we would like to do that. I hope I answered all of your questions there, Pam.
Is there one that that administration right now leans to, or all three of the options viable options? Is there one that two that you're looking at more intently?
Yeah, I think in my opinion, it would be a good idea to at least stay with Austin, Travis, and Williamson County and go to the April 13th. That would seem to make the most sense. And then again, pick it up from there. It definitely is uncertain about what will happen. It seems to be that we've not hit the peak of number of cases yet, or anywhere near that. And so it seems that this will drag on longer than April 13th, if I were to make a guess. So I think all of those options are viable for us. We'll hear from Elaine Pogburn in a little bit, and she'll be able to outline if there are any financial aspects of this. I think from what I understand, we're in good enough shape to manage the rest of this school year. But depending on what happens, there may, just depending how long this goes on, we're certainly looking at the budget for next year and trying to make sure that we plan effectively. But I think that was a long way to say, I think any of these options are viable at this time. I just want to make sure I hear board input.
Some of the board today might have also heard the monitoring that's going on, the questions or the request now to reduce contact by 90%. The social distancing has to be reduced. There's a lot of information that we've all kind of heard today too out in the press. So I would love to hear from the board members now if y'all want to weigh in on your thoughts on these dates and announcements.
So I'm having trouble getting all of the tiles back up. Is there a way that we can come off of the graphic and go back to the tiles? All right, there we are. So I think April 13th makes sense, right? That's when the stay home, stay safe order and the shelter in place order from Travis County, that's when they're set to expire at this point. So to me, it would make sense that we follow those guidelines and be part of the solution. We are the largest employer. We impact the largest number of residents in those counties. So I think it's important that we show solidarity with our elected officials at the county level and by extension the state level by staying close to the 13th. But I certainly defer to Dr. Gehring and the administration, who, by the way, have done an amazing job thus far. Thank you all for all of that.
I agree with that. I think it makes sense for us to be aligned with the counties around us, and much agree with what Dr. Gehring said, that yes, it probably looks like it may extend, further than April 13th, but I think as we get closer to that, we'll have a better understanding. In regards to when will we come back, I know we don't know any of that, but if some of those restrictions were released from our counties, if we saw the peak in early May and things came back mid-May, even at the very end of May, I agree that there is a lot of benefit to even coming back just for a little bit for all of our students, especially for those seniors, to be able to walk those halls for the last time and to be able to have those ceremonies. But I don't think just for the seniors, I think for everyone there, for our teachers, for our staff, our educators, if it's possible, I just, no one knows what's going to happen at this point, but I think I completely agree with us being in line with the counties around us. And again, thank you.
I was going to say the same thing. I agree with being in line with the counties and maybe giving the kids a chance to come back and say goodbye for the end of the year.
I think we weren't given much choice by our county, so I think April 13th is the date we kind of have to go to at this point. I think there's a lot of questions that we need to answer. Access to classrooms for teachers who have food in their classrooms, stress on teachers who are now trying to homeschool their children in a different district and learn those systems, the requirements and needs of our SPED community. So I think some questions need to be answered and some things need to be put in place. But again, we can't say what's going to happen beyond April 13th, but we need to get our kids back in school as quickly as it is possible.
And see here, I completely understand what Alexis is saying there. And maybe for our teachers too. But here's the just a larger concern. And I'm just trying to look big picture. You have such a political storm out there on what to do and what not to do, right? You've got our leaders wanting to come back earlier than other people want to come back. How are we going to make it right for everybody? Meaning, if we have no cases of COVID-19 in Leander ISD, how do we justify keeping all the schools closed? I can justify it. I'm just saying these are the questions that's going to be out there in the community. And I think whatever decision we make, I know we will think about it and it will be well thought out, but we have to be able to justify it to the community. We have to have a really good justification of why we're doing what we're doing. So whatever decision we come up with, we really have to have the community understand why we're making those decisions, because unfortunately this is very politically divided, and I just think we have to keep that in mind a little bit as we move forward.
I think maybe in some areas it might appear that way. In other areas, maybe different feelings. I think, Pam, what you're bringing forward, though, is are we just picking a date, or where are we putting our flag in the ground, or wherever we're putting our marker to say this is where we are? Since the health department, I mean, since Williamson County, Travis, and Austin are all saying April 13th, are you looking for something more credible than that if we go and say April 13th? Is that a good area? Are you saying you need
No, I'm fine with April 13th. That's not the issue. I'm just thinking longer term than that. April 13th all of a sudden is May 1st. We have to be ready. If we're going to open these doors again for students to come into our buildings, we have to really be able to justify it to the community. If we choose not to open our doors, we have to really be able to express it and justify it to the community as to why, because you're going to have some really strong opinions on this.
Well, and Dr. Gehring, hopefully as we move forward, you'll continue to bring this to the board, and as we move on, we can continue to discuss this. Aaron, did you have any thoughts as far as the next step?
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. I think the first is, I think it's wise for us to think of our messaging in sort of two veins. One is what I would call hard dates or hard messaging, and the other I would call soft dates or soft messaging, just to help set our community's expectations for what's likely to come. As it relates to hard dates, as others have said, given the stay-home orders that are already in place, it makes no sense to me for us to even imagine that we would operate schools contrary to those stay-home orders. So I would suggest that immediately we can make that hard communication to our community. And I would add that if those dates get extended by those same authorities, which candidly I think is somewhat likely, if you look at China, they had 760 million people at home for 2 months. And we've now got more cases in the US than China had. So our efforts to control this so far haven't gone as well as they did in China. So I think it's realistic for us to expect that this could be longer. That goes to the soft messaging, right? Which is, I think we want to begin preparing our community for what this looks like in different scenarios. What does it look like if we can go back in May? What does it look like if we can't go back in May? What does it look like if we're still in our homes in July? What does that mean for the start of school? Or what are we doing to bridge from the work we're trying to do in the coming weeks to deliver quality education to our kiddos? How are we gonna provide them a summer break, or are we gonna start early to try and make up for lost time? Or, you know, what's our approach? I think we need to have some of those kinds of soft scenarios in development and begin to communicate some of those ideas, again, softly, not as firm committed dates, but to begin to build expectations for what that might look like.
And Dr. Gehring, to follow up on Aaron's question, I guess I assume some of this was so far out, and it seems like in some ways you're just trying to plan this week and next week. I don't know how far along the district has gotten in the discussions, and I'm sure y'all have some type of skeletal things set up as far as discussions. I think you have more in our presentation, but maybe as you go along and present, you can explain kind of more of that, how much planning ahead and where are we at in that planning. And maybe that can guide more that soft messaging that Aaron's talking about. But so far, I think the consensus of the board is to, from what I'm hearing, is to follow with our April 13th, because that's what our health departments are saying. And we want to also continue to be deliberative, though, and think about the future at the same time. So.
Yes, thank you very much, board members. That's very helpful for us. And so I think we have a good idea of what the announcement we will make tomorrow. I will say this, that as we look to the long term, I'm very skeptical of making any kinds of projections, because literally things are changing on an hour by hour basis. And so every time I just think I got a handle on what's happening in this hour, I hear something else in the next hour that completely changes that. So I've given up trying to make predictions or anticipate what happens tomorrow, but we'll certainly be talking about the long term. And if you're ready, then President Bodie, I'll go back to the presentation and talk through some more things. We're going to have some of our folks jump in, and you'll hear kind of some of the phased approach of what we're talking about doing.
Yes, please. And thank y'all so much. We do understand. I understand it. It does seem like you get information, you understand it for this moment, and then the next day it changes the playing field a bit. So thank y'all very much for being able to move so quickly. Leander ISD is not only deliberative, but you guys are definitely on it. So thank y'all.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So let's move on one more. We're going to talk a little bit about food service. I know John Graham is on our meeting, and so I'm going to ask him to jump in right now and give us an update from John and Steve Smith on food service.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank my team. They have all done an outstanding job, but I want to say a special thank you to our CNS staff. The work over the last, really more than a week, but especially the last 3 days in this heat, what they have done to take care of our students and their families has been exceptional. I've been at all the sites, and they are working hard, and they are doing work that is amazing, and they do it with a smile on their face, and our community has been very appreciative. Every person that drives through has said thank you, and they appreciate the work that we're doing. There are cabinet members there, other members of our district staff that are there helping, but our CNS workers have done an exceptional job. Also like to thank our local law enforcement, Cedar Park Police Department, Leander Police Department, and Travis County Sheriff's Department. They are there greeting our families, helping with traffic, doing anything we need them to do to help at our sites, and they have been a welcome relief and help to our staff as we try to get our families in and out as quickly but as safely as possible. As you see there on the screen, we are serving food at 4 sites: Baghdad, Reed, River Place, and Running Brushy. We have 31 CNS staff workers working, and we have served 3,602 meals. hot lunches, breakfast. It's been amazing. And so I think one of the things that I want to make note of, because I'm not sure all districts in the area and the state are doing this, but we are serving hot lunches to our students. And we have heard that most of the districts are serving cold meals. We are serving hot lunches, and that's something that we think is important to take care of our families.
Can I ask John a quick question about the food before we move on?
Yes, ma'am.
And now I just saw your next slide, so maybe you'll be answering. But of the number of students that does 1,800 meals that we gave out, do we know the percentage of those students who are picking up the meals who are our free and reduced lunch students in the district?
No, ma'am. We are not asking that information. We are feeding every student that walks through our, coming to our campuses. And so we are not asking that information. And so we have not compiled that.
Do we know their names though?
I did not hear that, Gloria.
I'm sorry. Do we know the names of the students that are picking up the meals?
No, ma'am. We are not asking that information either. We do have some special things that we have to do at River Place because it is not a site that is necessarily on the list that our TDA would deem a site because of its percentage of economically disadvantaged students that attend there. But our motto has been students come, we feed them regardless of their status. And so we are not asking that information because we want to take care of every child regardless.
I wouldn't want us to ask that information. It was more, my question was to try to gauge if our free and reduced lunch students are being fed. My concern more was, are our free and reduced lunch students able to get a ride to go pick up a lunch? And from that percentage, determine if a high percentage of that student population is receiving a lunch, and if not, if we needed to consider some type of delivery of those meals to our free and reduced lunch students. So it wasn't that I wanted us asking, kids, I want us to be feeding them all, but more to get an idea of what's the percentage of our free and reduced lunch students who are able to go by and pick up a meal. And, do we have a sense of, are there students that are not able to get a ride to go pick up their meal? Is there any process?
So I can tell you that our counselors have been reaching out to our students, and I know there's a slide down here a little bit later on our backpack program. And I can tell you that we have students coming from all of the schools that participate in the backpack program coming tomorrow. And we know that they are our students that are on free and reduced lunches. Our counselors, our principals, and other staff have been reaching out to families. It's not just drive up. We receive all students. If they walk, they ride their bikes. If a parent reaches out to us, and I told this to a principal, and I told this to Corey as he was working with a family, if we know, we will find a way. We know that there are TDA regulations and other USDA regulations, and we are doing our very best to stay within those regulations, but we are accommodating as much as we can our families. And if that means that if another parent comes and picks up food for a family, we do that. If they walk up, we take care of them. And we are not looking to see who is actually in the car and counting the people in the car. If they tell us we need 4 meals, we provide them 4 meals, and there may be one person in that vehicle.
Perfect. Thank you, John.
Yes, ma'am.
John, I appreciate that information, and I agree with Gloria and understand what she was going with. It's not that we need necessarily, or we're trying to ask you to do something that you're not currently doing. But if we know that we have 8,200 students on free and reduced lunch, and we've given out about 1,600, the other slide, 1,600 meals, give or take, are we saying that this program was successful, or is the goal to get it closer to that 8,200 to say the program is successfully reaching the students, or is that Is that not how we're gauging this program?
I think it's
we're
hard
doing great
to.
anyway. I just want to know what we're looking at.
I think it's hard to gauge the success. I can tell you that over the summer, with 8,200 free and reduced students, we served 250 students a day in our summer feeding program. And we did not know what to expect. And so, and those families, of course, have the same types of situations, and we have increased that way over. One of the things that Steve Smith and I do talk about daily is, are we reaching our students and taking care of them? And I asked him that same question, and I think some of the things that our federal government and our state and local government has done, they have eased some of the restrictions on some of the federal programs and the state programs. And I think that is helping a lot of our students that qualify for free and reduced. And so it's not just us that are helping our families. I think there are other organizations and other government entities that are doing their part. And so I think as we go on and things may extend on the closure and the shelter, this may increase. And that is something that we have talked about. How do we ensure that we're reaching our families? And that may mean we increase sites, we increase other different methods. But I think we have exceeded our expectations when we started to put this plan together last week, and not knowing for sure what we would be doing over the last 3 days. And so I don't know what to honestly say is a measure of success, but I think we're reaching a large majority of our families that are in need.
And you're doing such a great job. I mean, I bet all the board members could go around and say how much we just appreciate it and seeing all the great things. I think giving that hot lunch is something that's unique for our community and appreciated. And I love that we're able to do that. So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe by looking at the numbers that we have on students on free and reduced versus the numbers of lunches we're serving might not be a good way to see how our program is working. Maybe as we continue, because as we said, we imagine we're going to have to continue past our April 13th. Maybe we can get just an update on the communications and the way we're trying to reach our community who's on the free and reduced about the program.
Yes, ma'am. And I think our principals are reaching out to us. Sarah was in a conversation today, and I think Krista was in that conversation with Christy Hilbin, our principal at Baghdad Elementary today. And our staff is ready to go to help us in any way that we can to make sure that the families that are in need are taking advantage of this program.
Yeah, and I think to the other board members' point, obviously we want to make sure that we're making contact, but I think the measurement at this point is, are we assured that we're getting at least making initial contact with all of our students? Leads me to another question, and I'm not sure necessarily how this works when school is in session, but are there any other special considerations for our special education community in terms of providing meals to them? And if so, what are they?
I don't know that I am the best person to actually answer that question. I don't know if Kendra, I don't believe Kendra's on our conversation, if Dr. Bentz could answer that, but I'm not sure that I can answer that, but I will find out that information and get that answer to you if there's not someone on here that can answer.
Yeah, and again, that was my curiosity. If that was something that just goes in a Friday memo, if I have parents from the special education community reach out to me, at least I would have some answers. So if we could put that in a Friday memo, that would be great. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I apologize.
No, don't worry about it. I'm writing it down right now so I can make sure we find that answer.
I will.
Sorry, sir.
Go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say I can't see the slides, so I don't know where we're at, to be honest with you. All I see is people.
Me too. I was just fixing to bug out and re-sign back in, but I just see our gallery. I don't see the slides.
Okay, I will try again. Let's see. Can anybody see the slides?
And can you still hear me? Because now I can't see that either.
I could see you until
I
you
could see him until you changed it.
Yeah, I can see the slide now.
I saw the slides as well until you just changed it. I saw them just a
All
moment.
right, I quit sharing them, so I'm going to try and share them again. Here we go.
Okay. You know, guys, by 3 weeks or 4 more meetings, we'll have this down.
Can you see the slides now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so the only thing I'll say to this is the victory for me in this is that we're providing meals to any student who shows up, regardless of who they are. We are encouraging everybody to share the news that this is what we're doing, and we will serve as many meals as we need to for people who show up who are in need.
Bruce, on that, I just wanted to say, I hope I'm understanding the board members, but I don't think anybody's asking staff to go research or do anything more than what you are possibly doing right now. Maybe that was just curiosity and questions, but I hope you don't take that as directives from the board to go tell us exactly who you're contacting and who we're feeding and what we're doing.
No, and to be
got enough on your plate without us putting more on your plate.
No, and to be clear, Pam, that isn't asking for more information. I think that's fair. We're looking at the numbers and going, okay, how are we reaching our population? And maybe what I think Gloria was saying, Gloria, correct me if I'm wrong, is by looking at the numbers, there's a difference. But as John said, looking at numbers alone isn't going to help us get the answers. So they're doing communication. So that's how we're going to then know what we're doing to reach the population. It's just how.
Well, I was kind of just talking to administration on that. I thank you for your explanation for the board, but I was really just trying to talk to administration that you're doing a great job. We're not, I didn't hear anybody asking you for a directive to do more than what you're doing. Just be cognizant of what's out there maybe.
Absolutely, we appreciate that. I was going to add that as teachers are reaching out to their students, and that's all regular teachers and also special education teachers are reaching out to all of their students, and so we're getting direct contact to many, almost the majority of our 42,000 students. Then one of the things we'll communicate with them is to make sure that they're letting our students know that this is available, and if anybody has a need, that they can show up. So I think over the next little while, I suspect we will start to see an increase in the number of meals we're serving. I think if this drags on longer, the longer it drags on, I agree with John that we'll start to see an increase in the numbers who show up, who get in need.
I want to make a quick comment. I want to thank Steve and our child nutrition team and all the hard work they're doing. They're doing an amazing job. I mean, our numbers are 3,000 for the district in meals, whereas Round Rock is about 300 meals behind, but we have half the number of free and reduced lunch of kids on the program. And we're also working with Williamson County and feeding essential personnel students that are at the Y, and that teamwork and collaboration that's going on. I mean, they're just doing amazing work, and we are so proud of all y'all and all the kids you're feeding.
Yes, excellent information, Alexis. Yes.
Thank you. So that's a great segue, Alexis. Thank you. We wanted to talk a little bit about the nurses and what they're doing. John, I didn't know if you wanted to jump in here too.
Yes, I will be glad to.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, so, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted a quick question about child nutrition, how we're keeping that staff safe since they're dealing with the public right now.
Yes, ma'am. And that kind of goes into our conversation that we're about to have with our nurse. And I was going to make a comment on the YMCA program also, because that is something that we are doing to take care of our Williamson County staff and first responders. But safety is very important to us, Grace. And so what we have done, and I think this is why we created this new department, is it has been a joint effort to take care of our CNS workers and to ensure that the safety and health is very important. And so each worker is wearing gloves, and they are wearing a mask, which has been provided to our CNS staff from our nursing staff. Kristen Wickets herself delivered all those items to our feeding stations, and so there are very strict guidelines on what we are following. And so at all times, of course, there's a social distancing as they are prepping the food, but they are also at any point when they are in contact with others, they are wearing their gloves and their mask. And then how the program is set up, the food is prepared and put into baggies. I'm talking with my hands here. I don't know why no one can see them, but the food is put into baggies and they put the food on a cart. The parents drive up to the side. They grab the food off the cart. The workers do not approach the vehicle. They approach it with the cart. The families take the food off the cart. Once that cart has been used, it goes back to another worker. We sanitize that cart with industrial grade cleaner as they have another cart in line, and they have a very quick process to put food on a cart, get the cart clean, bring up another cart. And so there is no contact that we are making with our families to not only protect them, but also to protect our staff. So we are taking every measure that we know of to keep our staff safe. And that may be some of the reasons why the lines take a little long, but it's best for us to take care of our staff. So with Darla Humes and Kristen Wickets in our department and Steve and TDA regulations, we are taking every measure that we have within our district to keep our staff safe. And I had a mask on myself today at Reed Elementary. So we are doing everything that we can.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So as we mentioned, also we are feeding our families at YMCA, but we know that there is a need within with our district, with our students, as they were not prepared for this change, that we do have medicine on our campuses that our students need access to. And so our nurses are working hard. We have 38 nurses around the district that are gathering up those medicines. I actually saw it at Running Brushy Middle School today, and making sure that we are getting the medicine in need to our students, and our nurses are taking that on under the direction of Kristen. As parents report in, Kristen arranges for those pickups. Again, they are following also the same safety measures to ensure that they are delivering that medicine in a safe way with mask and in gloves. We have not currently received any request from Williamson County for nurse volunteers, but they have asked us if there is a need, could we be prepared to potentially provide nurses, not necessarily at medical centers, but to man call centers. And so we are there working if there is that opportunity. Right now, Williamson County has not made that request. They just asked if need that we start to look for volunteers. The other thing that we are doing is we have nurses volunteering at the YMCA at Twin Lakes. They have been there the last few mornings, taking temperature, reassuring parents, again with all the safety measures. But we are trying to do our very best to take care of our community, and our risk management department, our health department, and our other staff are working through this. And so it's a joint effort, and I think our staff are doing some amazing stuff to get our students what they need right now.
John, I just wanted to comment real quick on the incredible work that the nurses are doing, especially at the YMCA, and having that program available for our EMS folks that are actually the ones manning the phones over at the Williamson County Health District Operations Center. I've heard from no less than 3 of them that said if we weren't doing that for them, they wouldn't be able to be there to man the phones. So know that the good work that those nurses are doing are having a definite impact in allowing that operations center to hum along and answer the questions coming in from the community. So great job.
Thank you. And all I can say is after I spoke to Commissioner Long, I turned it over to Steve Smith and Kristen Wickets, and they said we'll do what we need to do, and they took it on and managed it from there. And I have heard the same, that they are very appreciative that we're helping out at the YMCA.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bentz now to talk a little bit about our instructional plan.
All right. Good evening, Madam President, members of the governing board. First, I just want to say that I have never been so proud to be a part of an organization as I am to be a part of Leander ISD right now in these moments. All down the line, everybody has really risen to the challenge, and not only have they risen to the challenge, they've done so enthusiastically, positively, with joy and a unifying spirit in their heart. And so it is wonderful to see people pull together during such a challenging time. So our people, this is Leander ISD, so nobody's going to be content to just throw some resources up on a website and tell our parents to have at it. So one of the first things we established as a priority, really when you look at like the Leander way, it's that building relationships. So we knew right away that we were going to, start by having our principals connect with our families. And then when it came time to start offering learning opportunities, that it was going to start with a relational piece, and that our teachers were going to be reaching out. So with the district, at the district level, like Dr. Gearing said, we've been working, I just want to give them credit, since that first Saturday and Sunday of spring break, working to gather up and develop the guidance and the resources that our teachers would need. And then we empowered our teachers. We have amazing teachers in Leander ISD, and we empowered them to tailor those learning opportunities, to develop the learning opportunities to meet the needs of the students in their classes. So right now, today was the day, when from the student and family side, we officially started what we're calling phase one, which was, providing practice and activities that reinforce concepts and skills that were covered by teachers in class prior to the closure. Now, leading up to that, I will say there was a lot of infrastructure built and a lot of paddling below the surface. We started offering professional learning workshops on virtual collaboration with Zoom, with Google Hangout Meet. We started off with some optional workshops just this past Saturday, thinking maybe some principals and campus leaders will want to get a head start. It was full. We had, every single principal was in that both Saturday workshops. We had one on Zoom, then a couple minutes later, we had the Google Meet starting. All of our principals and campus leaders were in there. We've had them on Monday. We had ICs getting trained. We've gotten teacher leaders and teachers involved so that we would be ready to collaborate with each other, to plan, and then to jump off with our families. So we're leading through the change. We are working hard to take care of our people and our families. We know this is an unprecedented challenge for them. And, people are at home, working at home, have their kids at home. And we want to make sure that we're providing support, not only academically, but we're also providing resources, social, emotional health and wellness as well, and reaching out to people for things like teletherapy and just whatever is needed. So phase two, right now phase one's off the ground, so we're deep in the thick of planning phase two. And we are having those key conversations at the central office level with our principals and our area soups. This will also it will include some discussions with you and getting input from you relative to some policy that may need some temporary adjustments. We're meeting again tomorrow, and we will have something for you very soon. Just kind of to wrap up and offer myself for questions, I just want to say that I just want to thank everyone throughout the system for the work they've done, and I think we've been very successful. And what success looks like and how we're measuring success is with the setting a goal to reach each and every family and making those connections and having teachers and principals talking about any of our families and students that it has been a challenge to get a hold of, and creating plans, getting creative, and looking at how do we reach each and every student? And that has happened. The number of staff who've attended those virtual workshops. On Wednesday, we had workshops all day long for not just the virtual collaboration platforms, but also, the Dreambox, different math interventions and different resources, and collaborating with our curriculum teams and things. And how many people have been attending those? We're measuring success by those indicators. Positive feedback that we're receiving from our teachers, from our families. That's kind of how we're measuring success at this point. So I'm just psyched to talk to you about it today, and just feel real positive about getting the learning off the ground. We're hearing from families, some people sitting in the meeting today about how their kids, and they got reached out to, and teachers were talking to their kids, and they're on there doing work, and just that it's humming along already.
Well, Matt, thank you so much. I'm sure if other trustees want to chime in, I definitely experienced my students, my kiddos here, getting to go back online, and yay, that was so exciting, because look, this is just not my wheelhouse to give my kids assignments. So I'm sure they appreciate hearing from their teachers too, more than me making one up, because they didn't like the 5-page report I gave them. So thank y'all so much for all that you're doing. I love hearing kind of what you're looking for as far as how are we knowing we're reaching the goals we want for this program. That's tremendous. And as y'all get ready to come to the board with policy that you may need in place to help as you enact these next phases, also be thinking about support. I know from reading different media articles, there are all different districts trying to do different things for their community. It doesn't always mean just because one example was great in one community, doesn't mean it's going to work in ours. And I know y'all have been discussing different needs, but please make sure, we'd like to hear that too, as far as how we can support any type of hotspot needs or Wi-Fi, whatever needs y'all think you need. And I'll open up to other board members. I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you, Trevor.
So Matt, I share your enthusiasm, right? And accolades all around. You touched on something that I was going to ask maybe a little bit later in the meeting, but seeing as you touched on it, I'd like to go ahead and throw that out there now. You may not be the guy to answer it, and if not, it's coming up later on. That's great as well. But we were talking about the social, emotional, physical, and spiritual health of our students and our families. And with the Herculean effort that the district and the staff have been doing, you were talking about, all day Saturday. Do we have safeguards in place that our staff is getting the 4-pillar support they need with emotional, spiritual, physical, and those types of services? Are we taking care of them, and if so, how?
So I think I'll hand it over to Carrie Lynn in a minute to talk a little bit about that. I do just want to say that was really one of our main foci as we went to plan phase 1 and talked about, okay, how do we not overwhelm our students, our families, and our staff? And so we, that Saturday workshop was not mandatory, that was optional, but we knew people were raring to go and that we had to offer something. But truly, really easing people into things, not expecting people to learn all these new platforms and students as well, and have new teaching happening, and just how do we really manage that change, using what we know about best practices and people. As far as resources and support, Steve Clark in our department has worked a lot with students and families, and I think Carrie Lynn can talk a little bit about what we are offering to our staff.
Yeah, and again, if that's coming up later on in the presentation, I don't want to get off track with what you're doing. I just wanted to make sure that got out there, seeing as you had mentioned it during part of your presentation, that we're also providing those types of supports for our staff. So if it comes up later, that's great.
Yes, and I do have a slide for that in a little bit, Jim, and we'll talk more about it at that time.
So I have a great deal of interest in what you're working on, Matt. I think this is really important work. As I look at the possibilities for the curve of this virus, even in China, the acknowledgement is that they've only suppressed it. It's not by any means eradicated there, obviously. They're just now coming out of their homes. and the risk of a recurrence is very real, and certainly something a lot of Asian countries are watching closely right now. I wonder, well, and I looked back at the pandemic from 1918, right? The flu pandemic from 1918. It actually lasted 2 years. So I think that in this current environment, there's a limit to how much I can be home with my kids, but not 2 years for sure. But I do think that this model may be one that we want to build in a fairly durable fashion, because we just don't know when we might have to depend on it for ongoing instruction again in the future.
I would say I completely agree with you. And so we've had, that has been kind of the main topic we've been talking about all day is, you know, depending on what comes out of the board today, how does that impact our planning for phase 2? And how we are, while there would probably be some transition time in week 3 where we're again kind of looking at change theory and easing our families and students and easing our campuses along into, you know, the next level and the next phase of learning, we are committed to building a model that we will be ready to put in place next that can last the test, that will stand the test of time, that can take us through the end of the semester, and will build in learning that does focus on learning new concepts and mastery and support students. Don't, you know, really want to get too far up over my skis while we're still talking to principals and collaborating to make decisions about things like you know, how we're going to take care of kids with grades, with ranking, with, you know, with supporting students who may not have the best grade right now, and ensuring that this closure and how we're delivering learning does not negatively impact their standing as they're moving, you know, whether they're seniors or whether they're first or second graders. We want to make sure that they are set and have the learning that they need to move on and continue, whether we start the next year still with this type of a remote learning setting, or whether, God willing, we are back in the classrooms, or even back in the classrooms earlier, to the points you guys were making earlier. We're ready, but the durability of the plan that you're talking about, phase 2 will have to incorporate that. And yeah, it won't just be phase 2 is for next week. Phase 2 is something to implement until we open, and it will work.
It occurs to me too that there may be periods of time where we are physically open, where we reopen our classrooms and our campuses, but people may choose not to send their kids to school. And so we may need to operate this model simultaneously with students in the classroom. So to your point about it being sort of comparable in terms of GPA and all of the other things that we need to think about, it has the potential to have to be offered side by side with our traditional instruction.
I think that's a brilliant point. I mean, definitely agree with you.
Dr. Bentz, I have a question about phase 1, and I know right now we're not giving mandatory work and there's no more additions of grades, but I am receiving a lot of questions from families, and I know there's a lot of concern from students that, you know, that they took one test and that test was a significant portion of the 6 weeks and they bombed it. And they were hoping to have an opportunity to take another test and bring that up, or, you know, the teachers offer them some sort of continuous improvement that they're able to redo. And with not having additional grades this 6 weeks, have we thought about what are we going to do about current 6 weeks grades? Because it does impact a lot of our freshmen, our sophomores, and our juniors moving forward if you know, they're not able to have an opportunity to do better on the coursework that was given this 6 weeks.
I can tell you that that is definitely a part of the conversations we're having right now at the leadership level and with our principals. And decisions are coming down the pipe very quickly, but I don't have them for you tonight. And our goal again is not to penalize students but to have equity across the board as far as how to best support and take care of our students and ensure that they land in a good spot during this time, and as far as strategically for whatever they have planned for the future, whether it's just the next grade level or moving on to post-secondary. But we have not had those. We've had the conversations, but I don't have a decision to do the big reveal for you tonight, Gloria.
No problem. My son did want to pitch that he thought giving everybody 100 on everything was completely equitable if everyone just got 100. He said he wanted to throw that out there, that 100 is equitable. So just throwing that out there.
I don't know if the person who got 100 already would think that was equitable, but I will pass that down the line and we'll talk about it.
I know some universities for this semester have transitioned to pass-fail for the semester based on some of those difficulties that has downstream GPA effects. I'm sure lots of conversations about that in other circles too.
And Matt, I have one more question, and then I'm going to do my best to be quiet for the rest of the meeting. But there have been several news reports, and getting this program out to our students is, again, it's a tremendous effort to begin with. But there are some reports stating that there are some additional difficulties with effectively reaching our special education community. Have you noticed any of that? And if you have, what are we doing to mitigate the negative impact for our special ed kids?
Sure, and like I remember us talking last time, I think this is one of the biggest challenges. We are up for the challenge. We are, we're spending a lot of time working through the special individual needs, whether it was to the point of the person talking earlier, people who might not be in a position to get in the car and drive over and get their lunches, or just how do we make the learning accessible to students. And as we especially move from learning opportunities into a phase 2, how do we get students' needs met and provide continue to really work through providing the appropriate accommodations and modifications. I can tell you our staff is working really hard on that and really working with families individually. We have coordinators and specialists partnering with TEA and Region 13, along with other districts, to work together to really see how to do the things that really are difficult to provide in a virtual learning environment. It's complex, but we are developing a comprehensive plan for small group instruction. How do we deliver therapy and whatever else it takes to meet the needs of our learners? So definitely appreciate our people's thinking about it, and we are working through it too. And hopefully, I do believe in the last couple of days, there would be a measure of comfort taken from our people reaching out and working through how we're going to best meet the needs of those learners.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Dr. Gehring and Matt, before we leave this subject, did we jump out ahead too much? And the reason I want to ask is, Dr. Gehring, you had asked for just discussion on extension of the closing school from the 13th or April 13th or May 1st. When I'm looking at the timeline that Matt put up, they're going to start shifting into phase 2 April 6th. By calling it and saying April 13th, although that is in line with what our health department says on our counties, there's a possibility, we've all admitted, that it might be extended, right? It might foreseeably go to May 1st or beyond. Is there a benefit academic for y'all planning if we called it at a different time?
I'll let Matt jump in as well, but I don't think so. I think we're ready at the start of April 6th week to move into phase 2 and actually start to make sure that we give new instruction to our students. we didn't want to rush that, partly for two reasons, I think. Number one, to make sure that our staff was up to speed with the tools that we have available to them, with the possibilities of making sure that students are consolidating what they know already. But I think if we're going to have any type of long-term closure, then we do need to make sure that we're moving to phase 2 sooner rather than later. And I think April 6th gives us enough time to prepare for that, but also meets the needs of our students. Even if it's just for a week and we open again on April 15th or 16th, whatever that date is, then I think it's still good that we've kept that up. Especially if we consider things like kids who've signed up and paid for AP tests. College Board has put out that AP tests are going to look different, but are still going to be administered right now. And so there's plenty of opportunity for our teachers to work with those kids. And I think actually opportunity for our kids to potentially do better than they've ever done before on those tests, given the circumstances they find themselves in, the support that they've got, the resources that they have. So I think the timing is good, and regardless of when we call the closure until.
I think with the resolution in place, we could give Dr. Gearing the consensus of just matching the county or the state with regards to closures, where we didn't have to meet again.
Dr. Gearing, what do you think about that? Board members, does anybody else want to weigh in on that?
The only way in is he has that ability, Grace. I think the consensus was if we have time to do a board meeting, we really should always take it to the board first. But if there is no time and it's for the benefit of the students, then you have the right to make those decisions.
Right, and that's what I meant, that if we weren't due for a meeting, he would have the authority to do that.
Excellent.
He does without a board meeting already, right? He calls closures for weather and those sorts of things. This falls into the same umbrella, I would expect.
I believe so.
Next slide.
Okay, so before we go on, I just want to, on a slightly lighter note, we've been talking a long time, but I have 4 teenagers in my homeschool, and we've managed to crash the internet twice. And I had to suspend 2 of them already, which I think is going to help me to fail the new homeschool accountability system because I sent too many of them home. And the principal of my homeschool already reprimanded the math teacher, so things are going well in my house. So I'd like to call on Carrie Lynn McSpadden to talk a little bit about where we are with human resources, and I think we can touch here, and we also have a wellness slide in a little bit on where we are with supporting our most precious resource, which is teachers right now.
Yes, definitely, teachers and other staff for sure. So as Dr. Gearing stated, we have moved forward with paying all employees, and that does include premium pay. Premium pay, as a reminder, is specific to our hourly employees who are being asked by their supervisor to come to work or to work, maybe remotely. This includes our food service employees that are feeding our students, our custodians that are cleaning our buildings, plant services that are going around and checking on our buildings and making sure that our facilities are remaining in good shape. There's no water leaks coming about as we're having the facilities closed. So that is moving forward in collaboration with Elaine and her team. As we talked about, facilities are closed, very minimal staff going into our facilities, just plant services and food service and some of our custodians. Then we are continuing the hiring season this spring. We are continuing to do screening interviews for teachers. Our recruiters continue to reach out to people who are interested in coming to Leander. So we are continuing with that. We communicated with principals today about the transfer process, doing virtual interviews and that sort of thing. So we are moving forward, even though we had to cancel our job fair. We are looking at ways to maybe do some virtual job fair or virtual online experiences as well. So we're looking into that. To answer the question about our employees, absolutely, we sent some resources out before the break, and then we, on our EAP, our Employee Assistance Program, as well as Headspace, some of those resources that we have available. We've also sent Corey some additional information that hopefully he'll get out today or tomorrow to staff about some other resources that are available to them during this time. The next slide talks about the essential staff letter we created so that our staff who are out and about and going to our buildings and feeding people, that they would have a letter that they can show law enforcement in case they are stopped or communicated with. And this letter explains that they have been identified as essential staff and they are going about doing the service for the school district. So we have given hundreds of people this letter that are potentially going to be in our buildings out and about providing services. So we're arming them with ways they can continue the work.
Thank you, Carrie Lynn. Are there questions from the board?
Quick question, Carrie Lynn. For teachers who were waiting to take certifications for different positions, for ESL certifications or any of the additional certifications to apply for a position, what happens to them right now since those certification tests have been postponed, delayed, and canceled in some situations?
Yeah, so on the ESL certification, there was a lot going on with that. We're working with Tina Dozier and her staff to try and do that training online so that they are ready when TEA is able to continue testing. We've told current staff that need to be certified, we will be flexible. We're going to depend on TEA for some guidance, but we're going to move forward in anticipation that TEA is going to open that back up and they're going to meet the needs of the teachers who need to take those certification tests and be prepared for next year.
Thank you, Carrie Lynn.
All right, I'm going to ask Corey to talk a little bit about the communications in the district.
Hi, so our focus on communication has been a couple-fold. We have been wanting to make sure we have open and clear lines of communication and regular lines of communication going out. So that's why we have the regular updates. We are up to update number 12, and we anticipate we might be up to update 13 or 14 tomorrow, because we might have a situation where we do a board briefs update and then also an extension of our closure update. We haven't figured quite out how we're going to do that. We'll talk about it in our 8 o'clock call tomorrow. So in extending those lines, it's not only pushing out information, it's also that we have lines of communication coming in with staff being home. We knew that we had 42 campus phone lines that were going to go unanswered. We were able to scale getting a district-wide call center set up. 4 members of my team are operating that call center, utilizing actually Let's Talk. So they are virtually responding to phone calls through 43 lines, because the main district line is going into there. So we're taking care of people individually in that one-on-one setting as best we can right now. As those calls continue to come in and get people information, we want to make sure that people know that there's a heart and an ear behind what we're doing, and we know that these are uncertain times, and we want to support the work that everyone's doing. Our other item of focus, to look at it more holistically, our big issue in making this transition has been having communication infrastructure and systems in place. We have a lot of tools to reach a lot of different people, but we don't necessarily have some of those areas of consistency and usability. These are problems we had identified and we're moving towards for next year into making adjustments, and we pivoted and were able to make some of these changes in just a few days. The main change we were looking to do is implement a tool that's been around for about 10 years called Remind. Remind is a tool that allows teachers to connect with students and families at a point of contact that's more accessible, and that's their cell phone. And it was built as a text messaging tool about 10 years ago, where teachers could text message students individually without revealing their personal cell phone numbers, and having that layer of support and safety in terms of a proper and appropriate communication back and forth in a closed environment, and being able to send messages out to a classroom. The tool has shifted, and actually we had identified it as a tool to replace our current bulk messaging system for next year. Thanks to the superintendent, the board, and Elaine, we were able to move forward and turn a 4-month implementation around in 4 days. So we implemented Remind. We launched yesterday. What this allows us to do, so we had about 600 staff members using the free version of Remind, and we were able to give them the premium version. The premium version means that they can make phone calls without revealing their phone number. So we know that that's a better place to reach, especially when we talk about reaching students who might not be as easy to reach as others and are not as dependent on email. Allows us to make one-on-one phone calls for our teachers to support that relationship building and that reconnecting we talked about earlier. It also allows for extended characters. They can now send messages that are 600 characters. And the other big feature that they're able to do is it ties to our student information system now. That has been the big technical piece of the last 2 days as we've launched, is getting and making sure that student information system data is working properly in terms of the rostering of classes. So before with the free Remind class, if I use it as a teacher, students had to manually sign up to be in receiving that information. And now not only can students manually sign up, but they pull in roster information from the student information system. So we believe that this will mean it is more likely that students and teachers will be able to contact directly to students and to staff, and that was a big thing that we wanted to do. We're continuing to use Slack as our collaboration tool. We understand that Zoom is an amazing tool, and I think we've Zoomed a lot these last few days. But with bandwidth issues and just the general ongoing nature of this, having tools in place, Slack had been something that we have been working as a leadership team for the last few months, and implementing it had some advantages from a district-wide collaboration standpoint when we're in our buildings, and also a crisis communication standpoint and building out. And now we're seeing some use in our extended time. One of the cool things we were able to do, and again, this was on the fly yesterday, we knew that we were asking teachers to reach out and make connections with people and their kids and their students. And we knew as an administration, even though we're tired and we've been working 12, 15-hour days for the last 2 weeks, we wanted to help reassure our community that we're here. And to be able to answer some of these tough questions. So we were able to launch a Facebook Live event. We had Bruce and Friends. We tried to make it fun and also informational. That way, we know that there's a lot of dense content and a lot of these, there's a lot of press conferences going on and conference calls that are very much focused on very important information. We wanted to give people the details they needed, but also bring some levity to it in aligning with the relationship component of what we're trying to do with our teaching and learning team. We had amazing engagement. Last year, we did similar in that we did live Facebook chats with the superintendent and with various members of our leadership team. And we were 5 to 10 times larger than those yesterday, and doing so only in about a few hours of time and preparation. So I appreciate our leadership team for taking a leap of faith and trusting that I could figure out how to make this work from my laptop in about 45 minutes of time. And I think we saw some great results, and this might be something that we are looking to replicate for future, and working with an outside consultant who could help us manage that and improve the quality a little bit. At the end of the day, it's still a remote situation without a lot of technology or tools in place. So we think it was very functional, but definitely some areas for growth.
Hey, Corey.
Yes.
I know I've told you privately, but I think it's worth saying publicly. We've been on a conversation with PR, many of us on the board, that we just need to inform our community. We will save ourselves so much headache in the long run if we talk to our community about why we do things and what we're doing and to go live. And I have to tell you, you've really stepped up during this last 2 weeks. This Facebook Live event, the constant communication of why we're doing things and our thinking behind things, and our teachers' access to the internet and our students' access to their teachers. It's really been remarkable. And we're still also congratulating and celebrating good work in the district with our teachers and our other things we do. So I, for one, want to just tell you, I think you've done a remarkable job the last couple of weeks with this. And the communication out there, the reason we're not having so many parents, because the situation is stressful enough, but the reason that the parents are trusting us is because we have been upfront and communicated. We've had some fun with them. We've given them some hard information. We've changed their lives, basically. So I just think you've just done a really great job, and your team and everybody working with you has done a really great job on this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that and share those words with our team.
All right, this is that wellness counseling services slide. Steve Clark is in charge of that. He's not on the meeting tonight, but we do have those couple of things for our employees, Headspace app, and also the employee assistance program that Carrie Lynn mentioned earlier. And then we do, if you go to our COVID webpage on the LISD website, you'll see a lot of resources linked there that Steve and his team have done a fantastic job of putting together resources for our students, for our parents, for our families, and also for our faculty. So we do appreciate the work that he's doing behind the scenes to make sure that the mental health and well-being of all of our stakeholders is kept at the forefront of this. I'd like to invite Jimmy to talk to us a little bit about facilities and the construction that is ongoing.
You're on mute, Jimmy.
How's that?
There you go.
Thanks. Real quickly, as Carolyn mentioned, we do have our maintenance walking all of our facilities, ensuring there are no broken water pipes, no vandalism is taking place, and also to ensure all the doors are secured to prevent the vandalism. So they do that on a daily basis, all of our buildings. Of course, the grounds, we do have a reduced staffing right now as far as who's actually out working, but we are keeping the grounds maintained just to ensure we don't have varmints and, animals start showing up around our buildings. Custodial's done a great job. They've completed all the deep cleaning except for at Cedar Park High School. That the construction there, we had to switch out of a transformer with PEC, and they completed that. So now they're actually completing the work at Cedar Park High School. Of course, our playscapes and playgrounds have been closed. We are in the process of getting signage up at all of our playscapes, and as well as tennis courts and the tracks. We're locking gates to discourage people from going on our campuses and parking and trying to use our playscapes. So as far as our current construction projects, it's been a interesting week with the orders that have came in from City of Austin and Williamson County. While they appear to be the same, there's a lot of difference in the way they're interpreting them. And so the construction market had a pause about the subcontractors were saying they can't go to work, but then there's been clarification. I know the Austin ISD has released information from their attorneys also stating that the way the orders are written, construction is considered critical infrastructure system. And so because we're the Department of Homeland Security and the Cyber Infrastructure Security Agency has identified 16 different sectors as critical infrastructure systems, and the government piece is one of those, and education is a subsector of that one, which allows construction to continue. Of course, the social distancing and all the precautionaries have to be complied with to the greatest extent possible while you're building these schools. And so for our current projects, especially Danielson and Vandegrift, the Danielson, we feel very confident that will be completed on time. and ready for next school year. Vandegrift is a tight one, and as we know, everything is changing so rapidly, and who knows what's going to hit us in the next 3 to 4 weeks. But I know we have concerns of different plants that are announcing they're going to be shutting down. And so if we have our product and materials on hand, we'll be able to do it. Of course, subcontractors, if they stop showing up to work, then that's going to be another, issue that we'll have to deal with. But we are working very hard and communicating constantly with our contractors, which are checking with the subcontractors and trying to ensure we complete our projects on time and being very safe at the same time. We want to make sure all the workers are safe and we don't end up with an issue at one of our projects. Summer projects, we have 18 projects that are planned for next summer, this coming summer. And so there's a lot of what's going to happen for those summer projects. Again, the contractors they're bidding them right now. We're getting pricing, but there's concern, will we be able to get our materials on board? But we are planning as if we're going to move forward 100% with those projects, and probably somewhere in around early May, we'll have to make a decision whether we move forward or not. And it could be, if we're not able to, we have to revise the scope of work that we're going to be able to do this summer. It's very fluid. I mean, in the last 3 to 4 weeks, a number of things. We've gone from one end of the spectrum to the other, what's been, enforced. And so we don't know what's ahead of us, but we're planning as we're going to be able to continue with our projects and do those this summer. But, I think everybody just needs to be aware, as different plants close down, it will have an effect on our projects. I mean, one of the contractors told me today they had ordered some steel beams and they shipped them out one day. The next day that plant closed down because they had 2 cases of COVID-19 show up at their plant. So it was totally shut down. So if those things start happening in plants, we could have effects on our projects. But our plan and hope is to be able to do those this summer. So we'll keep you apprised as we learn more information. But right now, we are moving forward.
Jimmy, are there critical materials that we want to place on order now and store somewhere for those projects?
Well, most everything we need for next summer and current projects are on order. They've been on order. Y'all have approved GMPs for long lead items. Those are done, and it's just what plants are going to shut down. And so, if we can get our product out of them, we're in good shape. And that's with Danielson. Most everything is there from the building side. I know we've ordered furniture and some of the furnishings for the building. That is another thing, hopeful those won't get hit and shut those down, because that, we could have a building but no furniture. But I know that has been ordered, and so we're hoping we can get that on time also. But those long lead items are on order right now, so the critical items are. But
maybe
thank you.
Some of those, it's a matter of taking early delivery of those items earlier than we planned, right? To see if we can get those out of those factories.
And of course, every contractor is pushing the same thing right now. We'll take it, we'll take it, we'll take it. And so the plants are doing what they can, but it's a race to get product, no doubt.
All right, Bruce, you're on mute. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. I was just making sure there were no other questions. And then I had to find the mute button because it moved because my screen is sharing. So, all right. Maybe. So let me do this.
And Jimmy, great job. I mean, I think we've tried to make sure we've told it to everybody who's come up. I think all the board members have said it in different ways. I think all the we're just all so impressed. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. And board members, don't hesitate if you feel you need to get in there as well. Please do so. But just know, I said at the beginning of the meeting, I'm in awe. I still am. You are doing such a deliberative, thoughtful, well planned out, addressing the situation that is really unprecedented. So thank you.
All right, I'd like to ask Elaine to address us on the business and finance side of what's happening and what's about to come for the budget.
If only we knew what was about to come. Good evening, board members, Madam President, and Superintendent. Little bit to recap here. There have been multiple webinars this week, both on the federal and the state front, regarding what our world looks like going forward. And as everyone else has said this evening, those decisions change daily. We're still waiting to see what the vote is tomorrow on the stimulus package and how that will impact us down at the school level. There was some conversation today, if you'll recall last, talk about removing the payroll or suspending a payroll tax. Some of the bills that were circulating around excluded school districts from those tax breaks. And so we're monitoring these waivers and funding that is coming down every day. And so everything from maintenance of effort on the special ed front to Title I requirements to potential payroll tax breaks, lots of things floating out there. And so we won't really know what it looks like until everything is said and done. And so from the finance standpoint, we're kind of behind what's going on the instructional side. We're kind of in a wait and see pattern to fund the cost. There's not been a lot that's been incurred to date as an additional cost related to this crisis, but that is likely to change. Where we are seeing the largest impact already is in our revenues. So for both the current year and next year budget estimates, we're already seeing interest income will be vastly reduced from what we were projecting, not only for this year, but for next year. Other miscellaneous revenues like facility rentals, if we can't rent out our facilities because they're closed, that's going to impact those revenues, and even tax collections. So fortunately for the current year, most tax collections have already occurred, but those are down from prior year percentages. As we look forward into next year and the year beyond, as unemployment rates increase and people are losing their jobs, are we going to face another situation like 2008 where there are foreclosures, and will that impact our taxes? So there's a lot up in the air right now, and forecasting revenues at this point is kind of like a dart game. Any one factor could put a big dent in what our revenues look like. We're still getting word that TEA will fund schools, but as we talk about when do we go back, the question I have is if we do resume school sooner than other areas, and then we have low attendance, as we mentioned earlier this evening, then are we looking at filing low attendance waivers on a daily basis? Or what does that look like? And so I think there's a lot to be worked through in all of the state aid that's coming through. There was some concern that there wasn't enough money to fund House Bill 3 in the next biennium. And now with the economy facing the challenges that it does, what does our state funding look like in the years to come? And so I think the next session will be very interesting based on the economic impact that this crisis is having and could have in the future. So not to be a Debbie Downer, moving on, we are trying to track every cost that we can, even to the point of cleaning supplies that we already took out of inventory. In one of the webinars, there was information related to how FEMA worked with Hurricane Harvey. And if you could prove your cost for items that you had already paid for, there is some potential reimbursement there. So trying to track everything that we can think of. I know there's been a lot of IT needs for instruction, and just even in my department, people that are trying to work remotely and don't have laptops. And so I feel like the costs are going to start increasing as we move further down this road and as the closure expands. But assuring you that we're tracking those costs so that if there are reimbursement opportunities, we can take advantage of those. And then on the flip side of that, we will see some savings in our budget for the current year. We're not running buses, and so the fuel cost in that area will be less. We're not sending students out on travel, and so we won't experience those costs. That's a catch-22. We want our students to be able to participate in their competitions, but unfortunately they're not, and so there are some budget savings there, as well as utilities. When we're not using our campuses to their full extent, our utility cost in that area will decline for this current year.
Elaine,
Yes.
I know in the federal bill there is about $13 billion for schools. Have you been able to look at that to see if there's any potential for us and for what areas?
Right. I feel like there will be. I don't have the details on that yet, Pound, because we just have not had time to pour through the bill. Every day has been a constant Zoom meeting, and so through webinars and sharing of information with my colleagues, we're trying to stay abreast of what will actually be in that federal bill. But again, until its final passage in the House, we won't know what that looks like.
I know you'll let us know when you know. I just wanted to see if you've heard anything up to date.
No, the one shocking thing today was that some of the tax breaks were specifically excluded for school districts. And so the nationwide TASBO group, ASBO, they are lobbying hard for those changes. Then moving on, I believe, I just want to point out, just like everybody else in the district, the payroll and working really digitally, remotely to continue progress on the budget for next year and the processing of payroll and submission of state and federal reports that still are being required to be submitted on time. This is a new world for all of us. My group is not used to working remotely, and so this has been a fun challenge to show that we can still do the work without seeing each other on a daily basis. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to my small team that's still working behind the scenes to help the other departments and support them. And so that is a good segue into the next point here. As the closure extends, we're going to need to facilitate additional orders for supplies. So right now, Child Nutrition has sufficient food on hand, but that could change. And, materials, just supplies as we package up those meals for distribution. And so, we've got staff in place to be able to process purchase orders and get contracts signed and keep the flow of goods and materials happening so that we can support the delivery of instruction and meals and everything else. We have a system in place right now for the acceptance of deliveries. That was a huge concern across the district. Well, what about packages? And so the warehouse is open on a limited basis. And then Jimmy's team is helping us as they're visiting campuses and taking care of maintenance needs, checking for any packages that may have been left at the front of campuses, and then trying to keep the mail going for critical use, because there's a lot of mail that comes in for finance that needs to be processed. So just kind of FYI that we're looking at things as closely as that. And then probably the big one, and you all know, the market has been exceptionally crazy the last 2 weeks. And so I'm in contact with not only John at PFM, but almost every firm is doing market update webinars. I haven't been able to participate in a lot of those because of other commitments, but we are closely monitoring what's going on in the market. I want to flip over to some notes that I got today. So there hasn't been a municipal package really hit the market in the last couple of weeks, but a $400 million sale went out today, and it was the first in almost 2 weeks, and it was very well received. The muni market, the rates came back around today. For a few days, the rates had shot up, and today they're back down 50 to 60 basis points. And so our plan prior to all of these events was to bring the board a parameter order in April. which would spell out the parameters for issuing bonds on the 2017 authorization and potentially refunding any of the existing debt that's outstanding. As you know, the early part of the spring, the markets were very favorable for us to save the district some substantial dollars through refunding. And so we're still marching forward with that work to develop that parameter order, and that would allow us to go out to the market when we feel is the opportune time. We would definitely be doing a negotiated sale, which would allow us to enter the market, and if things went crazy, we could pull and not be committed to a change in rates or a change in market demand. And so that work is continuing on. It looks a little bit different from day to day, but not knowing whether the markets will stabilize or not in the next few weeks. We'll talk about that more as we get closer to that time, but just wanted to let you know that is a big one because of the changing market and we've been in and go in and out of each day. So I will wrap that up and open it up to questions. And I don't know what's wrong with my lighting. It looks like I'm in a fog. I'm really not.
I think it's just the bright shining halo over you.
Yeah, it's like I have an angel halo.
Thank y'all so much for all of it.
You answered most of my questions in advance. Thank you. One question was just related to the TCAD update. It sounds like they've found growth somewhere. What do we know about that? Is that going to stick, or what's your read on where that's coming from?
I have not seen anything official from TCAD this week. I know there was a rumor that they were looking again at 6%. I don't know where that's coming from, and they've not issued anything. The bigger concern right now with appraisal districts is how they're going to handle the review boards and the protest. And so value or appraisals were supposed to be mailed in April, 1st of May. And so I know all appraisal districts are really struggling with what this looks like going forward. Those values were established at January 1. So I don't feel like the values are going to be impacted as much outside of the TCAD issue for the 2020 value. But the values for 2021 are what are really concerning, and that's just a shot in the dark right now. And so all of our worlds look different. What the art process will look like is yet to be seen. So, Erin, on the TCAD specific, I haven't seen anything official coming from TCAD. There was just some talk that they had come to a resolution.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move on. And my slides keep freezing up, so excuse me here for 1 second. All right, just a couple of things. We mentioned these the last time, but we have some external services that are still going on. The Hope Austin Backpack Program is still progressing. As John mentioned earlier, they're delivering hundreds of backpacks for pickup for our students and families to feed them over the weekends. For those who are in severe need, we did have a couple of service providers offering free internet services. I'm not sure how real that really is in terms of now with the shelter in place, whether those providers are able to get to houses and actually implement that or not. Our Leaf Book Drive is ongoing, and PTA Closet is still, the clothes closet is still open. And I know we have other things happening in the district that we're not naming here, but we continue to try to support as much of that as possible to keep our families in need. And with that, if there's any other question or discussion, we are open to that at this time.
I think, Dr. Goering, we had discussion on during it. I don't see any other board members having questions.
Perfect. So with that, I'll turn it back to you. I hope everybody can see each other again.
Look at that. There we all are. Here's our B bunch square. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, our consent agenda. Is wish to pull any items from the consent agenda for discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
Madam President, I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
I have a motion from Jim and a second from Aaron, and we'll continue this process tonight to do a roll call vote. We'll find out if we still need that later for future meetings. So, Lauren, if you will.
Trish Bodie,
Yes.
Aaron Johnson,
Aye.
Grace Barber Jordan, Gloria Gonzalez de Lecchia,
Aye.
Alexis Grimes, Jim McKay,
Aye.
Pamela Wagner.
Aye.
I think that gives us all of our ayes unanimously. No nays. Motion carries. Did I have that right? Board members, speak up if I did that wrong. Okay. All right. We'll now move on to the next item, our action items. Now, we did take up these action items and discuss them before. That doesn't mean you can't have questions about them now. But in case our audience who's joining us wants to know if we're moving at a faster pace, they can go back and review our board agenda review meeting that we had before our emergency one. But other than that, we're going to move on to our consent agenda and start action item agenda and start with the student experience. And I think we've already done the consider of technology and instructional materials adoption. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
So then let's move on to our next one, because I think we still need to do the next part, which is consider approval of Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills Certification. Matt shaking his head. See,
Yes, thank you. I'll jump right in there. In fact, this is a very simple item for us. We just have to certify that our curriculum does in fact cover 100% of the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And we do have Krista Carleen on board if you need any clarification on that, but we are requesting your approval with that tonight.
Board members, are there any other questions? If not, we need a motion.
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees and Superintendents certify that Leander ISD meets the TEA requirements listed above to be in compliance with current state policies and laws regarding instructional materials and use of TIMA funds.
I'll second.
Okay, I think Jim. So first from Aaron, a second from Jim, and then if you want to call for the vote.
Trish Bodie,
Aye.
Aaron Johnson,
Aye.
Grace Barber Jordan,
Aye.
Gloria Gonzalez de Lecchia,
Aye.
Alexis Grimes,
Aye.
Jim McKay,
Aye.
Pamela Wagner.
Aye.
Right. With 7 ayes and no nays, the motion carries, passes unanimously. We'll now move on to our next action item, or actually operation items, which is consider the approval of early release of critical positions.
Yes, thank you. Again, we have Carolyn McSpadden on the call to answer any questions that you may have. We did talk about this on March 12th. These are additional positions that we are asking for release for in order to continue our hiring process.
I'm going to read the motion, and then if there was more discussion, but it's in front of me before it goes away. I move that we approve the addition of 18.50 new positions for the 2020-21 school year.
I second.
I have a motion from Pam and a second from Gloria. Any other discussion? All right. Corinne, if you'll call for the vote.
Trish Bodie,
Aye.
Aaron Johnson,
Aye.
Grace Barber Jordan,
Aye.
Gloria Gonzalez de Lecchia,
Aye.
Alexis Grimes,
Aye.
Jim McKay,
Aye.
Pamela Wagner.
Aye.
With 7 ayes and no nays, the motion carries unanimously. Board members, thank you so much. We are moving through the technology and where can we find motions? And I had to reach over a second ago and go get my consent agenda, so I popped out of the screen, but I'll have all my materials kind of somewhere near me later. I'm even learning where my camera is, which is down here at the bottom instead of at the top. So thank y'all so much for patience as we move through this. I thank again the Leander ISD district for all the great work that they're doing. It's tremendous, and we appreciate the deliberative approach in which our staff is taking. Now, we are getting ready to move into closed session. It is 8:19 p.m., and the board will now go into closed session for the purposes permitted for the Texas Government Code, including Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding pending or contemplated litigation and/or attorney-client privilege matter. Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation regarding resignation, terminations, employment, reassignments, duties, and evaluations of personnel officers. Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation and consideration of employment of Bush Elementary Principal. Texas Government Code 551.0821, deliberation regarding matters whereby personally identifiable information regarding one or more students will be disclosed. And Texas Government Code 551.071 and 551.082, agreement to resolve pending parent-student grievance. No action is going to be taken in closed session. Any action pertaining to closed session agenda items will be taken when the board returns to open session. Board members, you will see in a moment something pop up in your screen that invites you to closed session. Please move over to that way. We'll go into a closed session room that is not in the public. And then once we conclude that meeting, we will then leave that room and come back to this room to conclude our meeting.
All right, Mrs. Bodie, you're clear.
All right. It is now 9:02 p.m. and we are coming back into open session. Board members, do you have any actions pursuant to closed session items?
Yes, I do. Board, I move to accept the settlements as presented by council regarding dependent student grievance.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Pam, a second from Jim. Corinne, do you want to call roll?
Trish Bodie,
Aye.
Aaron Johnson,
Aye.
Grace Barber Jordan,
Aye.
Gloria Gonzalez de Lecchia,
Aye.
Alexis Grimes,
Aye.
Jim McKay,
Aye.
Pamela Wagner.
Aye.
With 7 ayes and no nays, the motion carries. Are there any other actions?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes, I move that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendation of Jonathan Belon Valdez for principal for Bush Elementary School employment contract for personnel additions as presented in accordance with the salary scale policies and contract of Leander Independent School District for the 2019-20 school year.
Second.
I have a motion from Gloria, a second from Alexis. Corinne, will you call the roll?
Trish Bodie,
Aye.
Aaron Johnson,
Aye.
Grace Barber Jordan,
Aye.
Gloria Gonzalez de Lecchia,
Aye.
Alexis Grimes,
Aye.
Jim McKay,
Aye.
Pamela Wagner.
Aye.
With 7 ayes and no nays, the motion carries. We have
I move that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendations for teacher employment contract for personnel additions as presented in accordance with the salary scale policies and contract of Leander Independent School District for the 2019-20 school year.
I second.
motion from Alexis, a second from Gloria. All those in favor, Corinne, would you call the roll?
Trish Bodie,
Aye.
Aaron Johnson,
Aye.
Grace Barber Jordan,
Aye.
Gloria Gonzalez de Lecchia,
Aye.
Alexis Grimes,
Aye.
Jim McKay,
Aye.
Pamela Wagner.
Pam, you're on mute. Did you say aye?
I said aye.
7 ayes and no nays, motion carries. Last motion for the evening.
Well, I'm sorry, I do have one thing from Bruce I wanted to ask. The Texas Department of Agriculture received, is it going to allow waivers that kids don't have to be in vehicles to get meals? Have we corresponded with that yet, or have we done anything about that yet?
Yes, so we are watching that. As of entering into the board meeting, the PDA had not actually approved that. It is a rumor out there that I'd heard. I hadn't seen the approval yet. I didn't quite hear if you said you saw the approval. Okay. Yeah, we'll be working on that tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. with our admin conference call.
Which goes back to the moment by moment. Y'all are learning something or seeing something new every few moments. Thank y'all so much again for being so deliberate and being so flexible and doing such a great job of serving our 42,000 students. Board members, thank y'all so much for a great meeting tonight. We now can round it out with one more motion because I see Gloria. Yes, one more.
I move that the Board of Trustees accept the recommendations for teacher employment contract for personnel additions as presented in accordance with the salary scale policies and contract of Leander Independent School District for the 2020-21 school year.
I second.
A motion from Alexis, a second from Gloria. Corinne, would you please call the roll for the vote?
Yes, Trish Bodie,
Aye.
Aaron Johnson,
Aye.
Grace Barber Jordan,
Aye.
Gloria Gonzalez de Lecchia,
Aye.
Alexis Grimes,
Aye.
Jim McKay,
Aye.
Pamela Wagner.
And she said aye. I saw her mouth, but she was on mute.
Aye.
Aye. 7 ayes and no nays. The motion carries. And so, guys, board members, that concludes all the items we needed to vote on tonight. Thank y'all so much for a very insightful board meeting. I thank you so much for the deliberate conversations we had. Excellent conversations. We'll keep an eye on when our next meeting is going to be. Bruce and Donna and Corinne will all keep us updated. And on any of the information that Bruce is sharing with us, I did ask Donna to go ahead and put that on SharePoint so we have all the place where we can go access all of that, because I know our emails are getting rather full right now. We're balancing a lot. Thank y'all so much, board. Thank you, Dr. Gehring. Thank you, staff, and our entire LISD family for joining us tonight. That's parents, students, teachers, y'all all are doing heroic jobs right now. Thank you. With that, the meeting's adjourned.
Good night.